This move comes after President Trump signed the bill of support, causing an outpouring of support in the streets for Americans among the Hong Kong protesters. Joining me now, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, a member of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Glad to be with you.
People in these crowds saying thank you for not forsaking us. Thank you for supporting us. How important is this sort of relationship between the United States and these Hong Kong protesters?
The relationship between Hong Kong and the United States goes a long way back, but it's a basic principle. The United States stands up for freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of free protest, freedom of the press. These are basic values that we stand up for, and we should continue to stand up for those anywhere where they are in the world. And for the people of Hong Kong, they just want the right to vote and the right to speak and to live free. We should stand with them for that, and we are.
Where is this going, do you think? I mean, we were talking about Iran, in the prior segment. And when you watch the rumblings, there's so much obsession with impeachment in the country right now, or at least in Washington and a few other places. But what about what could be going on here? What do you see when you look into the crystal ball with China and Hong Kong?
Yeah, exceptionally difficult to be able to see. This has gone on for months at this point, and no one saw this going on this long. But Hong Kong just had its first election since the protests began, and it overwhelmingly swung towards those protesters on the streets and those individuals speaking out for freedom, completely threw out the pro-China government that was there in the past. And so we're watching a pretty significant moment. People forget, though, the Chinese military is lined up along the border just outside of Hong Kong, and they could march in at any moment. And the reason Congress passed and the president signed that bill was to be able to send a clear message to China: do not march your military into Hong Kong. So we made a very clear statement.
Pardon me. What's the impact when you look at these, posters of a muscly President Trump and these pictures that they're waving? What do you think President Xi what goes through his mind as he looks at this and he sees President Trump being marched on posters down the streets in Hong Kong?
Well, I hope that he has a little bit of a shiver of freedom, the same thing that Gorbachev had decades ago when Ronald Reagan stood up and said, tear down this wall, and be able to speak for the people in eastern Berlin and to be able to say, allow them to be able to have freedom. She should be aware that there are a billion people in his country that are longing to be free as well.
And he talks about crushing people's bones. I want to ask you a question before I let you go, because I know you've done a lot of work on this waste project. What have you found in the government waste? I'm sure it's taken, its volumes full, but what are some of the most egregious examples, and what can we do, or does anyone care anymore about this debt?
I'm a little bit afraid that people have stopped caring about waste and loss in government. The economy is so good. People are making more money. There's the inflation's down, all those things. And so people have lost the focus on waste in government and trying to be able to bring down debt and deficit. So this is our 5th annual report. And we brought up things like about $2 million that we sent to the Russians to be able to study sea lions. We looked at $11 million that were given to people that had passed away in Puerto Rico for Social Security benefits. And we found some really big issues that are out there. There's a huge waste in one of our Medicare programs dealing with prescription drugs. It's $22 billion. It affects the consumers and affects the taxpayers both in that situation. So there's a lot of areas that we focused in on that we want to just let people know about. They can go to our website, lankford.senate.gov.